Okay, everybody. Without any further delay, we will now begin our thumbnail art stream for this week's episode of Culturally Aft. Just want to make sure all things are running in order here. Still working with some technical difficulties. All right. All right, so we are beginning the thumbnail stage. I have all my references put together. This week's episode is going to be about foxes and sorts of mythology and trickster myths and other common facts about them. Some other things I bet you didn't know. So right now I'm just getting my colors together for a palette, picking out the highlights for it first. I sure hope. Alright, just picking out highlight colors there now. And for the shadows, we're going to go with more of a pink, magenta. Start with something the darkest. And for something a bit more saturated. Right, so those are our highlight colors. Shadow colors, rather. It's handy to have something off black for shadows on brighter colors. And excellent. I was having a bit of issue catching this stream on my phone as well, but that is resolved there now. Alrighty, so still working on a palette. Picking a bunch of different hues for foxes. Getting some gradation in between. Really don't need that much though. That a little bigger. There we go. One of these days I'll have two nice big displays to look at. They're really keep an eye on everything else that's going on. And to anyone who is watching, Thanks for dropping by. Feel free to leave a little shout in the comments. We just started up this painting for our friend Malwave, and he will be part of the Fox's thumbnail. This is Griffin, sort of Hoovian, real fancy sort of guy. Sipping away on his espresso or tea. I like espresso. So just getting local colors down. Usually I'll work with what comes from the sample, but make it a bit brighter, a bit more saturated. Try pushing a bit more contrast. Some of the hues, even a bit more blue and the darker green. I mean, there are reference colors, but I will take a bit of liberty in pushing some of those colors in higher contrast ways. So these are a little brighter, a little more saturated than what I'd usually go with, or rather what the reference provides, but I find my paintings come out a little dark. So if I start with brighter colors, it helps me keep things balanced. Alrighty. Alright, so skip ahead a couple of minutes to a little bit more of an interesting moment. Yes, I pre-recorded this. Further help me facilitate this live stream and keep in touch with you guys. Help me keep on track. I know exactly how much time I'm taking. Instead of having a live stream suddenly go into the wee hours of the night. A little tree in the background to just put some depth into the painting. So while I'm working on the painting, it's important to keep an eye on the entire composition. Starting out with bigger blocks, just colors, zooming out, keeping it small, just keeping your judgment loose. And I'm not usually the best for taglines. So usually I just start with a simple word involving directly to the theme of the episode and more or less just get the placement and text size. Just get those items down, and then when we can figure out the text later, I already know exactly what I'm trying to fit it into. And so for now, I'll just keep it down. Just keep the I usually start with keeping the letters in the bottom third of the thumbnail as a safe start. Usually the most important visual information will be in the um, middle and top thirds, usually across that line. Um, there are a couple of other grids or overlays you can look at for your compositions, not just thirds, but also fifths, other diagonals, certain things, certain ways. Just kind of dissect your painting and look at it and how certain relationships line up. And yeah. Don't want to spend all day on this. So just name it. And there we go. Just put that aside for now. Maybe play with the sliders. You can just play with sliders in Photoshop all day long. It's almost too easy. Hue sliders, opacity sliders. It's endless possibilities. Alrighty. What next? What next? Alright. Well, let's see here. As mentioned with the composition, you want to be thinking about all parts of it, not just in like big and small, but also in terms of front and back. I mean, you're trying to tell a three-dimensional story with a two-dimensional rendering, so it's the portrayal of depth is critical. It's critical. Color temperature is another way you can really achieve this and push certain subjects. What I'm playing with here in the palette now is just I'm taking the light and shadow colors. I don't know. I'll try something else here. I've taken the light and shadow colors, and I'm going to be turning them into like colder versions. So lately, I've been just putting warm lights, warm shadows on the main subjects, surrounding outside shadows, and cast shadows have been getting cold shadows. Been putting colder colors on cast shadows and the shadows of surrounding objects. Cold lights are a good way to really push the other side of the object. Usually I'll only get there in longer paintings. I really want to push those sorts of edges and texture controls, those sorts of details that really just take way too long for a thumbnail painting. Like, these are supposed to be seen tiny. I can't spend all day just flipping around with his feathers and his beak reflection. I don't know. It's I don't know. I feel like I get a little in over my head, especially not only with this. I feel like this thumbnail might be a little too much. That's it. We got this far. We'll just rock it. And even with the Star Fox thumbnail, that was a bit much. That took a lot of hours. I mean, we're turning it into a poster, T-shirt. They're online now. I mean, I don't turn every thumbnail into a shirt. But I guess it'll be something else that we just do now. Be pretty great. Maybe we'll turn this thumbnail into a shirt if Malwave really likes it. Have a picture of him hanging out with the foxes. I'm not sure if I'm imagining some sort of like Japanese fox village or anything. I'm just some sort of oddly colored field of foxes. Sorry for all the microphone hissing. Still trying to get a setup down. Um, all of this is being done on a single laptop. Has been done on a laptop for years. I don't really have a microphone or any real solid office space or office table or anything like that. So the microphone is actually rustling against my shirt. The very microphone that came with my cell phone that I got this week. So nothing but the latest and greatest in this house. Alrighty. To those watching, thank you for sticking around. Watching a painting come together is not the most exciting process, especially in the later runs when it's just detail over detail. At least at this point, we can still see a lot of just the general image come together. So now we just have a little fox in his arms. I don't know if he's going to be like singing or crying or I don't know. I think he should just be grabbing all the attention. He is the reddest fox after all. Little newt for the eye, for the nose. I'll erase for settings. Alrighty. So this is where I guess I'm a little more crazy in Photoshop. Just like to keep all my layers nice and flat. Yep, that's all the foxes and the character on one layer now. And just every now and then just check it with the text. Yes, this is a pre-recording, and from time to time I will be just kind of blipping ahead every now and then. Alrighty. So, skip ahead a little further, just by a couple of minutes. Just adjusted the bird. Sorry, we just adjusted Malwave with the boxes to fit a little larger in the frame. This means fewer subjects for me to paint. Started zooming in on the expression of the little fox in his arms. Just going to quickly lay in some color for his mouth and tongue and just a bit of shadow there. I am way too messy. Alrighty. Oh, God. It's just circle brush everywhere. This thumbnail has been brought to you by Circle Brush. Circle Brush, the only brush ever. Alrighty. The start of paintings aren't very glamorous usually. I mean, you're gonna think largely about just the general color, just the, as a painting teacher once told me, the attitudes. Which, best way to explain, I guess, an attitude in art would be like a mass of values. So a bit of a harder term to explain, I guess, but we got time. I'm also hearing a bit of my own voice coming back on a playback, so it's at a very low volume. It's kind of distracting. The attitudes refer to like the tonal value of the subjects, the environment surrounding it. So the attitudes of the composition are definitely what are going to tell the story of the painting. You know, a lot of how we see texture and relationships with light are determined by value structures. They're determined by things in shades of gray. That's why we can still watch a movie in black and white and still know what's happening. So oftentimes when I'm painting and I'm coloring, like I'm not even really looking at the hue, like what chroma or what color, what part of that rainbow wheel I'm using. I'm just looking at how dark or light it is purely. So, you know, if it looks like an object is lit and shadow and like how I'm going to make a darker part of an object, appear relative to a lighter part of it. Um, I mean, there's a lot of funny ways that certain surfaces will react to light as, light particles are projected onto it. And it can take a while to really do justice to those calculations and renderings. And this is a thumbnail painting. I can't get lost in too much detail. But in the meantime, I'm just going to detail the crap out of this tree. Make it soft. Make it look like it's catching some light from our top. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Looks like a nice little something. Put some light on it there. Put some lights. With really white lights, you don't get a whole lot of hue. And you really want to reduce the amount of color contrast in your backgrounds to really push distance. Um, got a little preview of it, super tiny, accidentally. I mean, yeah, it's not the best. I'll just leave it though. It gets the job done. So there it is. Might want to fix that text later. Okay, what do I do? What do I do? The man with all the answers. And a resting board face. Alright, so just going to do some background stuff. Skip out another couple of minutes. There we go. So a lot of the background shapes, I'm going to start them out as like literally just straight lines going right to the focal point. Like I'll put more dark lines more dark lines in some places or white lines in other places, just entirely based on where the important objects are. So I'm going to have more dark stuff on the right-hand side of the painting. And I might put the darks where they can really push some elements of Malwave in the front. Again, like I'm really trying to be efficient here as well. I aim to get these thumbnails done in an hour, and I already know, I've really got a feeling this was going to take more than an hour. Just to get the foxes to look like foxes, not like orange circles. If I can just decide on a background color. Oh, there goes the circle brush. Forgot that one. It's another one I like to use. And these thumbnails are small resolution paintings, so it's really easy to smudge. Especially in different surface, different texture brushes. I use the smudge tool maybe too much, and I think it's why a lot of my paintings come out so muddy. But I do enjoy how easily it just creates transition and volume for me. Alrighty. And once again, thank you for watching. It's a little nerve-wracking to start doing these live streams, but as we do more of them, I'll be more practiced, more confident, and better advertised. Larger audiences, that's for sure. To make it a thing for Wednesday nights, I guess. You can always go a little quicker through this playback here. It's one nice thing about pre-recording. It's, okay. Doesn't have the same essence or spirit, but I'll tell you, I'm a lot more relaxed just watching this footage come together rather than sweating it out. So at this point, I have just a little eyeball put in place for Malwave. Apologies for any resemblance of a zombie or anything like that. I draw a lot more anthro animals than real ones, so it's my excuses for any uncanniness of fox anatomy. I don't know if that rib cage is just giant or too small, or looks okay to me. It looks like, for all intents and purposes, we're gonna go with that. Oh yes. All right, everyone gets a little bit of a white mouth now. Everybody gets to be super cute. Everyone gets to be super trim. Time to turn these guys into actual foxes. More of his body, just kind of jumping in. Fox McCloud. I'm not putting your face in this. Oh man. Happy that I actually had a chance to paint Malway's face and not just scribble it together here in Photoshop. I need to fill in his ear with that local color. There you go. And rim lighting would be cool, but that would be a pretty complicated core shadow that I am not in the mood for calculating today. Again, time limits. Really got to be efficient with thumbnails. I'm making one of these every week. It's not going to pay my rent, so I got to be efficient. All right, so now we're putting in some more core shadows where things are overlapping. Putting in some extra highlights around the rims now. And we're starting to get more of an illuminated scene here. So I really want to create maybe, I don't want to make it something too religious or holy, but I mean, it's a pretty beautiful moment Malwave's having here with this fox. And yeah, I gotta put something in there for the eye so it doesn't look like a zombie. Like, I know where he's looking. I know what he's looking at. I know exactly what his pupil's doing, but I can't hold that in my head, I guess. So whatever. We'll get to it later. Keep building shadows. It's always more efficient to get the color right the first time, but some other times you just got to build it up. It's still pretty muddy here. I'll build a bit more of a vignette, a bit more saturation. The inset foxes. Start to clean up. Soften the edges a bit so we can keep a bit of a feathery finish. So keep going around the wings. We're really going to have to start chopping up those foxes soon. Turn them into organic figures. Break them out of this geometric state. Go just going to keep building up Malwave, making sure he's looking nice and pretty in his spotlight. Our Patreon sponsor. And Malwave. Messaging right now. I forgot to clock out of Telegram. Let's just take care of that right now. This beak's coming together now. Go. Just fixing up some of the darker details now on Malwave's face. Alrighty. And so, once again, thanks for watching. And if you just tuned in, this is a pseudo live stream in which this has been pre-recorded, and I am simply curating the recording of this drawing. So we have a bit more of an expression building up on Malwave's face there. He finally has souls in his eyes. Pupils, I mean, pupils. There are, as we go, we're going to find some things are developing much more than others. And things like the space between his right ear and his hair, as if his hair just totally comes out of nowhere in that one spot. And there's this perfectly clear negative gap between his. Probably a small technical thing only I notice, but we will resolve those things as we go later into the painting. Figure out what's happening with his right hand, and oh boy, all the good stuff. All right, so yeah, there's still quite a bit of work left to do on this thumb before it can make sense. Feel free to leave a shout if you're here in the chat. Excuse me. All right, looks like I took a quick break here. Zip ahead a little more. All right. So I skip a minute or two here and there, but I mean, we're still seeing a near brush for stroke process of how this thumb is coming together. In previous Culture Leaf videos, we've seen just super speed paints of the thumbnails being done in a matter of seconds. So I'm happy that I can offer this format for your viewing pleasure as well. And once again, if you've come here via Patreon, thank you so much for your support of our YouTube channel. Obviously, every little bit helps, and just starting to fill in his trench coat. feel like when I get to that sort of point, like I am right now with this coat, I mean, I like how the shoulder is, where the elbow is placed. I wanna just say that's done. I wanna be able to put certain sections of the image to rest and just forget about it. Zip just a teeny bit more. I've begun to clear up the crowd of foxes. Really began to chop some really begun to chop some of those edges on the foxes. Mm. Must have got spacey. Nope. All you really need to do for a bunch of fox heads is draw a bunch of triangles. And to further shape out, say, that yellow one that still has two round circles rather than two triangles, I would be using the color of Malwave's coat and coloring the space around those ears. I want to make the impression that he is surrounded by foxes and that even the viewer from where the photo or the painting is being captured, I want to create the illusion that there are foxes even behind that point. Just cut more triangles, making sure that they all overlap nicely. I mean, I'm not looking for the best patterns, best relationships. I just want to avoid tangents. I want to avoid weird overlaps or things lining up at a perfect axis. You got to keep it shuffled. You got to keep it off center. You can't have everything in a perfect line. Some of them got to be a little shorter, some of them got to be a little taller. The more scattered, the more varied it can be, the more natural it's going to look. And the more thought you put into it that way, the better it can be. So at this point, just trying to get more like local colors down so I can just build more foxes on top of that. This is on a less focused part of the painting, and they'll be the last ones to receive any detail. Alright. It's gonna zip one further minute. Put in more foxes over there. More foxes, more triangles. I feel like in the later part of the painting we can do a little more zipping. Oh, there we go. And put more character, more. I really want to push just how happy he is with the super duper sparkly anime eyes. See how this goes. It's a little stark. Okay. It's really easy to overdo this effect. So you can just take the local eye color and tone it down a bit that way without losing any of the personality. The biggest thing to look out for, especially with colors, is just a lot of things becoming muddy really quickly. I mean, especially when you sample colors like I did just then for some of the shadows right there. Um, I mean, you lose brilliance in the color of doing it that way. You lose Like you're getting an average of a sample of two different mixed colors, so you're mixing it again, and you're not really getting any fresh color out. So it's important every now and then. I guess it's a more traditional painting term to say take something straight from the tube, but you know, like if I take any of those oranges that I have on my palette over there, I would consider that straight from the tube. Even though some of the things up there are mixed in the palette, a lot of those colors, I mean, it's the most saturated or it's the brightest version of that color you can get. Um, and I mean, ideally, especially, if you're going to sell paint in a tube, that's how you would want the artist to receive it. So that way, if they didn't want it to be so bright, they could do that. But, I mean, if you only have black and white, you can't make color out of that. So that's why straight from the tube, it's always super radiant. It's always super bright, super colorful. It's something you can't make on your own. And, well, that's why you buy the color. So, especially when you start working in shadows and you start working in different fabrics and materials, don't be afraid of the color picker. You really gotta keep them fresh. You'll do your painting a little favor with that bit of extra work ethic. Filling in some details there now. I mean, especially with watercolor painting too. I mean, it's so easy to get a muddy palette, especially when you're working with water. I mean, keeping your water on hand fresh and clear with without too much added color. I mean, if you're doing a purple section of your painting and your water is purple, sure, you're fine. But like, if you got to switch to yellow, you better change your water, or else you're just going to get these super murky, dark yellows, which are almost never pretty. Dark yellow is you don't see that. You don't see that. Like that's what brown and orange and rust is for. Like that's you kind of got to take shortcuts with color. You kind of just gotta make up rules. Without breaking harmony, of course. And that's where the 10,000 hours come in. So it wasn't until I moved out here 3 years ago that I did any painting at all. I only drew. Like I did stuff with colored pencils, but as far as thinking with color in this sort of sense, I never once even considered it that way until I started going to school for concept art. Go. Some details in the pause there. Zip a little more. About 2 minutes there. Alright, so really starting to pull some light down on the center characters. I'm going to finally clean that corner of his mouth with the shadow that was driving me crazy for a long time. It's finally done. Hooray. Just some light details. Even that is very generous. If anything, too much. And then when you do too much and you subtract, that is like 3 times more work than you ever need to do. Crap. Alright. Everything is fine. Yeah. Okay. What do faces look like on this angle? Is that what his chin would be doing? I don't even care. Yeah, screw it. Let's just do that there. Yeah. Break the silhouette. Do it. Build the chin, build the shadow, build the future. building more shadow. All right. Well, looks like I'm going for that rim lighting after all. Really capture textures, the crests, where light is being caught most. Probably a bit heavy on the bottom part of the beak, but whatever. I mean, so smoothing things out now, building up relationships further on the focal ground. Skip ahead just a bit more. So, just let this section play to the end. Excuse me. The end of a flu. Don't worry, we'll not catch it through this video. And maybe catch the need to support your favorite furry YouTube channel, Culturally Effed. You too can have your character drawn within a field of foxes. Go, just getting through the last bit of the shadows there now. Really gotta get this finished up here now. Really gotta get this done. Because this is over an hour into the thumbnail at this point. And I mean, usually these things get one character and an abstract background, and this is a little more than that. It's a little more to calculate. But at this point, gotta get it done. Gotta get it done. Gotta finish it. God, I don't care how ugly those guys look. Although, for the extra effort, I'm happy to put a patron's face on it. Multiply and overlay are pretty well the only two blending modes I used. Hard light and vivid light can be pretty cool. Vivid light, especially with more neon colors. If you want to do silly things like that. I think the last time I used vivid light was for specifically graphics, shapes, squares that weren't living, breathing at all, but carried information very well. Alright, so cleaning up more of those ears, more of those little features, the sneaks, sneaky shadows, sneaky highlights, just little tips on a clipped overlay layer. You get those super bright yellows and oranges, super warm colors. Overlay is really good for pushing temperature in your colors. And yeah, it's way too bright. That is way too bright. There we go. Oh, yeah, this guy looks horrifying. There, he looks cute. Oh God, so purple. He looks alien. Ugh. Super happy, adorable fox from outer space. He wants to suck on your arm. Not to be cute. Alrighty. More ears, 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 ears. There you go. As mentioned before, kind of go back and forth. I mean, I'd go back to the coat to finish that round corner if I had all day for this thumbnail. But look at how many other ears that need more attention than that one. And that's kind of how you determine what needs to be done in the painting. Everybody gets a nose. Those guys in the back. So, let's skip out a few more seconds. Alrighty, so this is where I got on the first pass. I shared it with RK, and he had a few select words and feedback, and we pushed forward for another pass, and this is what we came up with. Here we go. So it's always good to have a second pair of eyes, and that's been one of the greatest experiences of working on College Relief is having somebody with a completely different skill set, but just as much of a critical eye, and just no time for a bad product. I mean, if there's something wrong with the thumbnail, he's very quick to let me know, and I'm very quick to make the solution for him. I mean, main issue that was there before, I kept working with the foxes word going over all the foxes that I had painted. So we decided to put this up in the sky as I'm doing it here, and I'm going to try to blend this behind the horde of foxes. And that tree that I had worked on before, yeah, there it goes. Just totally blocked by the words. So it's important to keep going back and forth on all points of the composition so that we don't spend like an hour on the face if there's a body and 24 foxes to be drawn as well. Otherwise, we're going to be spending an hour in all these places, and we don't know how it compares to everything else. So then by the time you're done all those other sections, you go back to the first part, and it's completely off. It's completely different from the rest of it. And I mean, it's just easier to keep it balanced if you just work on a little bit in this corner, a little bit in that corner, play with the graphics, or play with the background, but don't get stuck in one spot. Just keep going around. Just keep playing with different parts. Right. That's masking an old... Ooh, that O is going right through him. Okay. Alright, a little bit of a dick around here. Let's try this again. Now that I got these guys set back, I need to... There's still some low opacity in some parts of those foxes. So... Okay, we could do this for now. It's a better way of getting this done. And sure, tower of the word foxes falling behind him. Let's turn that off for now. All right, so I need to work on these foxes a little more. All right, there we go. There we go. That's a much more colorful bunch. All right, let's get rid of some of that muddiness. Sharpen ears. Really just try to force it in there. Get some white mouths. White mouths. Just kind of emerging from the crowd. last 10 minutes. Let's skip ahead just a little bit. So, still more fixing of the last few foxes. And I mean, just kind of pulling them out of nowhere, really. I wanted to have at least just that one guy jumping up from the rest of them. So, the rest of them can be very plain, very herd-like. Just keeping them all doing different original things is very inventive, exhausting, and time-consuming. Yeah. I find a lot of these thumbnails look like just super loose, impressionist watercolor paintings. Although I don't really practice impressionism per se, I do have a very, very loose painting hand. The next couple of years, I'm definitely going to be tightening up. Look further into how to control my edges, different brushes, and seeing how I can get those to work for me a lot better. Alrighty, scooch out a little further. Alright, we're in a home stretch here on this thumbnail now. Just finessing. And, you know, so when someone has feedback, you've got to listen to it. You can't be frustrated because someone didn't like it per se. There's a functionality that we need from these thumbnails, and Arcade didn't feel like the very first pass had it. And now that we're here, going back, fixing it up, not a problem. And when it's all said and done, it'll have taken a bit more time, but we end up with a thumbnail that gets the job done so much better. Alright, just double it up again. A lot of these foxes were first painted with a low opacity brush, so it's still not completely opaque on this layer. And as I double them up, I start to see where like the super low opacity parts are starting to be a lot more apparent. Alright. This part's pretty muddy, and you know, hands are the easiest thing to draw ever, so we're gonna just leave little blobs here. I'm just gonna leave the idea of a hand there rather than a fully fleshed out finger to finger. It's much easier to draw the space between fingers than each finger themselves. Same goes for teeth or any series of wide objects placed closely together. It's always easier to take the smaller workload, right? So instead of big fingers, what about tiny spaces? Okay, home stretch. Now we're just incorporating that text from before into the background. Just play with some of those edges. Clean up its relationship with the foxes in the front. There we go. There's your contrast. There's your super clear thing that's easy to see. Yes. This is why I paint, guys. I'm not much of a talker. Alrighty. Final overlay to harmonize all of our colors into one unified palette. It's very easy to overdo the overlay. So I'm just going to only keep it where I think it's most important. What else can we do here? Yes, make this smaller. And the mask is unattached to the foxes in front, so I already worked out those edges, and whatever I put behind it will work around that. Yeah, show off as many lines of text as possible. Not quite sure what else does really have to do. I guess I can just push more of the shadows that are here in the crowd. Just draw out some of those details to really just, almost in terms of lines, just make it super clear what's what from what. Alright. Gotta get this done. Gotta finish it. Push, push, push. Yes. This is that one last little final touch. And there we go. We have a vignette and a sort of spotlight up in the top middle region. And with all that shadow around there, I can simply lift it to show where the light is hitting their little newts. Yeah, we'll play more general cards at this point. Attitudes, choosing a big blob of foxes versus like the specific shapes of a fox. Bigger general areas of value. I'm just rambling about our terminology. It's probably not making any sense. But anyways, our thumbnail is complete. All done. Thank you so much for watching today. It's been a great pleasure to do this. Certainly going to be doing these more often. So, next week on Culturally Left, be sure to check out our episode all about foxes. This has been your host, Underbite, and thanks again for watching.